Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're coming from International TEFL Academy. My name is Rose. I'm a Student Affairs Advisor here. And today we are joined by Jessica, and she is tons of fun to talk to. I've been working with her. She's actually one of our social media ambassadors, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about diversity abroad. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Rose.
Excited to have you with us.
I'm excited to be here.
All right, let's go ahead and just kind of dive into things. So I wanted to get a little bit of information, just kind of talk to people a little bit about your background. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, just in the sense of kind of where you're from, what you were doing before you went abroad? Give us a little bit of those details.
Okay, well, I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved around a lot on the East Coast. I spent a lot of time in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I kind of claim both of those cities. Before I decided to teach abroad, I was in healthcare, so my degree is in biology. Started out as pre-med and went into healthcare. I worked at a hospital for a long time. And then I kind of changed gears and went into cosmetology. So I was a hairstylist for a few more years. And during that time was when I decided I wanted to travel more and possibly live abroad. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. So did you, you have a bachelor's degree, correct?
Correct.
And what was your degree in?
In biology.
In the biology. Okay, great. So when you decided to kind of go abroad and teach English abroad, did you have any question marks or concerns? Was it something that you instantly found is totally obtainable, or were there moments where you're like, is this right for me? Can I do this? What were your thoughts kind of surrounding that?
Initially, I just thought, I can't go teach abroad. Like, why? Like, how could I go do that? I'm not a teacher. Like, I thought you really had to have a background in education and be an education major in order to teach abroad. So as I began to research more, I found out, oh no, that isn't the case. If you have even an associate's degree in some cases, or a bachelor's degree, you can go and teach abroad. So,
yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have those thoughts initially. I don't have that background in education or even in English, and how am I qualified for this? But it's great to kind of talk to people who don't have a bachelor's degree in one of those areas, because it's definitely doable. Tons of people do it. I did it myself. My background was in psychology, which is, obviously not education. So it's great to kind of like let people know, yes, it's possible. Yes, you could do it. So tell me a little bit about was there anything in particular that really kind of sent it home for you? Like, hey, I want to go abroad. I want to make this happen. This is kind of the right move for me.
I was feeling really stuck and just like sedentary with my life in the States. Like, I couldn't figure out where I could go. I'd done a few careers. I lived a lot of places. It just kind of felt like mundane, and I was like, I don't know what more is there. And this became the more. Like, it gave me something to look forward to, something to do, and new things to learn.
Yeah, awesome. So you got TEFL certified through International TEFL Academy. Which course did you end up taking?
I took the online course way back in 2015. It seems like such a long time ago. And it was great. I loved that there was that option, because at the time I needed to work full time. So that allowed me to do that and still get my TEFL certificate.
Yeah, definitely. I actually took the online course as well in 2014. So I beat you there by a year. But yeah, same sort of situation. I love that we have that part-time option for people who are working full time or who are students or things like that. So that's great. So when you first started your TEFL certification, what country did you think you wanted to go to? Did that change at all kind of afterwards?
It did. When I was doing the program, I was like dead set. I'm going to China. I'm going to China. I'm going to China. And did all the research, like everything I did during the course was directed at going to China. So it was a surprise to me and anyone else who knew what I was planning to do that I ended up in Colombia first.
So tell us a little bit about that decision. What was it about Colombia that stood out to you? What kind of made you change your mind a little bit? I know a lot of our students kind of come into it with this idea of, hey, I'm going to go to this country, and then that idea evolves a little bit and it ends up changing. So it's kind of interesting to hear what that journey looks like.
Absolutely. Towards the end of my course, I did my practicum in two places. One was in an elementary school, and the other was like a free center for adults where people from other countries, all other countries, could come and take English from tutors. So I tutored there, and most of the people there were from Honduras and other Spanish-speaking countries. So it made me realize that I had been wanting to learn Spanish for quite some time. I was applying to jobs in China as well as other countries. Like, you name a country, I was like up just throwing my resume out there just to see what stuff. And I ended up in Colombia because the job that I ended up getting just seemed like such a perfect fit. I just was looking for the easiest stream, like what seemed easy. And China just seemed really difficult, seemed really far for my first run at this life abroad. And Colombia was just like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hour flight. It didn't seem too far, and it was only a 6-month job. So I figured, okay, if I hate it, I can just come back home. No big deal. It's only 6 months.
Right. Yeah. I think Latin America is always a good option for people kind of trying to ease into it a bit, who are one of those people like yourself who want to do multiple countries. It's a great first region because you're right. If not that far away, it feels a little bit closer to home. The time zones are pretty similar if you're from the United States originally. A lot of people have at least a little bit of a Spanish background, so they kind of have that knowledge of the language. So I think some of those things definitely help people feel a little bit more comfortable, since the whole idea of kind of going abroad and teaching is it's scary, right? So it's nice to have something that's a little bit comforting. Did you have any concerns before you were going abroad with either Colombia or China? I know you're in China now, but any main concerns where you were like, I'm doing this, it's happening, and then all of a sudden just kind of like, ooh, what if, or, how does this work? Or
I didn't really have the typical concerns. Like, I've been doing a lot of speaking to people who are getting ready to embark on this adventure. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't really worried about that. It was other people who were worried. With the terrible stigma that Colombia has, which isn't the case the whole year I was living there. My mom was worried about drugs and things like that, all the negative things that you hear, but I wasn't. I don't know why. My biggest concern was just being able to communicate, because I did not speak Spanish at all. So that was it. And how would I be able to, just navigate life without knowing the language? Would there be somebody to help me along the way, finding a place to live, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. Did you find that once you went over there, there were people that kind of helped you along the way, or it was easier than you thought to kind of get an apartment or find a job? The actual process that you went through, was it easier than you thought, a little bit harder? Kind of how did that relate?
It was much easier than I thought it would be. I found the job before I left the States. That was one of the things that was really important to me. That sort of gave me like a security blanket. I felt like if I had signed some sort of contract or knew that this was a real company and I knew people who were already working there, and then I felt like pretty comfortable with the decision. So yeah, when I landed, there was somebody there to pick me up at the airport with a little sign with my name. There were other people who were, fresh off the plane from all over the States as well. They took us to a hotel. We were all like in this, safety net, so to speak, with people there to help us along the way and ease us into life as Colombian citizens. So yeah, it was great.
So tell me a little bit about the transition from Colombia to China, because you're in China now. How long have you been in China?
I've been in China just over a year. I just made a 1-year anniversary last week. So yeah, that transition was interesting because initially I wanted to stay in Colombia. I loved living there. I lived in Medellin and loved everything about my life except for my paycheck. So Latin America doesn't typically pay that well. It's kind of break-even status for teachers. So as much as I loved it, it just didn't make sense financially for me to stay there. So I started applying to China straight away, and everything kept saying, you have to go to your home country. You have to go to your home country. And I'm like, no, there's got to be a way I can just go straight from here to there. I did not want to come back to the United States, but I did. You do have to apply for a Chinese visa from your home country. So I was told, because I started early, I started before I left Colombia, it would take maybe 3 months to get everything sorted. So cool. My mom was very happy to host me for as long as I wanted to stay there. She missed me. So 3 months, mom, I'll be here. And then I'm off to China. I never even unpacked my suitcases. Like my suitcases were ready. I had everything. I was ready to go. 3 months turned to 6 months. And then finally 8 months later, through all of the paperwork and the changes that are going on with teachers in China, I finally got my visa and then set off to Beijing.
Gotcha. Yeah, China can be one of those countries where there can be some hoops to jump through, for sure.
Yes.
And it's never the same experience for everyone. So, you know, people work with students and they'll say, okay, what do I need to do? And my answer is always, well, there's a chance you'll need to do this. There's a chance you'll need to do this. And, you know, it's hard to tell someone, like, I can't tell you exactly how it's going to go, but let's try to be prepared for any and all situations. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that in the sense of understanding that China definitely puts you through the ringer a bit. So now you're going through that process. You're heading over to China, which was the country you originally kind of wanted to go over to. What was your experience kind of landing there and kind of soaking it all in?
Oh, wow. Well, it was like, I don't even know what word to describe it. It was very different from Western life. Everything was different. The way people speak to each other is different. The way things operate it's just, I really felt like an alien and I just landed on a new planet. For the first day, I was just like taken aback, like, what have I gotten myself into? Beijing is very busy. That's where the headquarters is for the company that I work for. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing. They had a sign and there was someone there to pick me up from the airport, but just navigating to get to that person was a challenge straight away. My bag somehow landed hours before I did. So I was waiting for my bags to come off and I suddenly heard my name over the intercom, but everything else was in Chinese. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm saying my name. I don't know what's being said. I'm trying to ask for help to, like, you know, people who look like they work at the airport and no, they're like, you know, they didn't understand what I was saying. And I'm like, oh my God. So finally, a police officer was like, what? Like, he spoke English and I explained what was happening, told me where to go, got my bag. Okay. So straight away, it was like scary, just feeling, even though I had done this before, it was very challenging.
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone who's just joining us, if you're just tuning in, my name's Rose. I work here at International TEFL Academy. I'm chatting with Jessica. She is one of our social media ambassadors. She's currently living in China. Prior to teaching in China, she was in Colombia. We were just getting some of the background information from her. She was talking a little bit about her transition from the two countries. At this point, I'd love to dive in to get a little bit more information from you on, you know, what your experience has been in both countries, and maybe if you want to do a little bit of comparison, like, feel free to. But just kind of your experience being an English teacher over there.
Okay, well, in Colombia, I taught in high school, and it was much more casual, much more laid back public high school. I feel like I could really relate to the kids a lot better because high school wasn't that long ago. So that was that. And then China, I'm teaching at a training center, which is completely different. It's more of a business than a school. You know, the parents pay for their children to have these extra lessons. I teach in the afternoons and weekends instead of teaching in the mornings during weekdays. And it took a lot of getting used to just the structure. I had to really mentally think about it. Okay, it's more of a business. Like, we're kind of here to cater to the parents because they are buying a service that I'm providing. So once I started to look at it that way, while still keeping the fact that they're children and I do want them to be educated, but they've also been in school all day or all week, and I want them to have fun as well. So looking at the big picture has helped me a lot with this training center type of work.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it probably was a bit of a shock coming from one to the other. It sounds like it could be very different.
Very, very.
Did you find that the second country, so China, was a little bit easier just in terms of adapting? Obviously, the culture between Colombia and China is different, but just because of the fact that you'd already kind of gone through it, you'd already kind of gone to another country and kind of figured everything out, did it feel a little bit easier the second time?
It did. There were a lot of aspects that were a lot less challenging. Like, I knew what the process would be to finding an apartment. I knew kind of what school life would be like. Some of the challenges, like setting up a bank account and things like that. Like, I knew what to expect because I had been through it before. And like you said, while they are different countries, a lot of things are the same. Like, you're a foreigner. Things are just different for foreigners. So,
right. How did you find your community abroad in either country? How did you kind of make friends? What did you do to kind of, settle into life there?
In Colombia, Colombian people are just very warm and friendly. So it's completely effortless. Like, just go outside and people will become your friend. Like, this. So I know that sounds crazy, but that's literally what happened. So I had a really great community there of both expats and Colombians. I also was in a Facebook group that I started with another girl who also came to Colombia at the same time I did. We added, I think there's over like 2,000 people in that group now. So that became a way to make friends. China's a lot different. It's a lot less warm, a lot less, not necessarily friendly. It's just less warm, I would say. People are friendly. I live in Chongqing, which the longer I've been here, I've started to realize Chongqing is like the Wild West. It's like Texas, if we were comparing it to the United States. Whereas like Beijing would be more like a New York City or just someplace more proper and things are done a certain way. Chongqing is wild and crazy. People are friendly once they feel like, you're a local, which I've been here for a year. I see the same people all the time in the neighborhood. So they're pretty friendly, but I wouldn't say I have like a community. So most of my friends are people that I work with or people who work for other educational institutes in the city.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you ever been asked like any uncomfortable questions or been any uncomfortable situations because you're a foreigner?
The most uncomfortable situation I had was getting sick. I went to the hospital. I was told this was like an international hospital and, there are doctors and nurses that speak English and everything would be fine. Because I didn't want to bother anyone to help me go and translate things. That's always a tough thing, getting someone out of their life and coming with you. So I went by myself. I typed before I went, like all my symptoms, translated into Chinese, and thought, okay, this is great. Like I can just show them my phone. And that part was great. They saw what was wrong. They took me into a room and decided to do an EKG. And, in the United States, we have these privacy laws. Like, you are in a room by yourself, like you're blocked off from other people. There can't just be random people looking at your medical records and information. That does not exist in China. Like, as soon as these are other patients or other people who are with patients, they're like, what's wrong? They're trying to translate. I'm like, who are you? Why are you behind the desk with the doctor? At one point they did the EKG and the nurse just kind of just ripped up my bra and my boobs are out. And then there's like a cleaner guy walking around behind the curtain. There's some other staff. And I'm just like, what? Can we close the curtain? Like, what is happening right now? So that was really traumatizing experience. That's probably the most uncomfortable thing that I've been through here.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. I had some similar situations in Korea, so I kind of understand where you're coming from. Where it's just like, wait, can we shut the door or no? Okay. Just want everyone to see. Okay, great. Have you experienced any discrimination while you're being abroad, either in Colombia or in China?
I have not experienced discrimination because I'm Black. I've experienced discrimination because I'm a foreigner. And that takes some time to understand the differences. I have I have friends from different ethnicities here. Like one of my closest friends here, she's Irish, she's blonde, she's got green eyes. She and I look completely different, but she gets the same reactions that I get sometimes. So being with her helped me realize, oh, it's not a Black thing, it's a foreigner thing. There have been times when I've just been out and people have been like, oh, no foreigners tonight. Like No foreigners. It's just locals only in this particular bar or restaurant and things like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and again, Chongqing is a city, I just learned this recently, where only 4 or 5 years ago were foreigners allowed to get long-term visas here. So that really put a perspective on like, okay, I get it. I totally get it now. This is why people stare endlessly, incessantly at us, because they're just not used to seeing it. It's only been 4 or 5 years since we were allowed to be here long-term. So I get it.
Yeah, so they're probably a pretty isolated society for a while. So it's still really new to have foreigners coming to the city. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it about that area or that city that kind of drew you to that location? I know earlier you compared it to kind of the wild, wild west. What was it that drew you to it? Or was it just kind of finding work that brought you over there?
The company is where I started from. So I worked for a company called First Leap, and they have locations in several cities in China. They gave me several options. All of them were in very cold climates, except for Chongqing. So that was the determining factor, the weather.
Yeah. That's important. Sometimes you don't take that into consideration, and then you're a year in Russia, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's cold here.
Yes.
Okay, great. So anything that you wish you had known, okay, so something that you know now that you maybe wish you had known prior to going abroad or prior to, going to your second country?
I wish I had known how important it is to really study the language in what country you're going to. And that's for both countries. Like I said, I didn't know Spanish at all. Colombia is a great place to learn it. I felt like I was pretty close to fluent when I left. Same with China. I didn't know any Chinese at all. Still struggling with learning that because, again, they really don't speak Mandarin in Chongqing. They speak a local dialect. So it's probably the worst place to learn Mandarin.
Wow.
Because what they speak is totally different from proper Mandarin. And I wish I had done it sooner. I'm sure that's what a lot of people say. I wish I had done this many, many years before I decided to.
Yeah. So do you recommend studying the language before you go over, or are you just saying that once you're over there, kind of, immerse yourself in it and study the language while you're there and kind of do what you can to be a part and kind of, get in the culture a little bit more?
Both. I think that you really have a much more rich experience if you can speak even a little bit of the language. When Colombians would see me try, they would be so appreciative that I at least try to say what I was trying to say in Spanish. And they were really helpful in like correcting my grammar, correcting, my verbiage on what to say. China's a little different. People don't correct you because they think it's rude, which I'm like, no, correct me. Please tell me if I'm saying this wrong. But again, like I hired a tutor here. And again, just being able to say a few things, people are super appreciative of you trying to speak the language. I never wanted to be one of those people. You meet people abroad who've been living somewhere for 8 years and they don't speak any of the language. And you're like, how is that even possible? Like, how do you live?
You're like trying not to learn anything. You have to be like trying. Ridiculous. So do you find that people in China are more hesitant to use English with you than people were in Colombia, or what's the comparison there in terms of the likelihood of them kind of switching over to English once they realize that maybe you don't have strong enough Spanish skills or Chinese skills?
It depends on the city. China is so big. And like you said earlier about places being kind of like cut off from other parts, because Chongqing is there's so many mountains around it. I really feel like they've just been in this like valley, so to speak, for so long that no, they are not willing to even try. There's a thing, in China about losing face and just kind of just means being embarrassed in front of other people. So if they feel like their English isn't good, they won't even try. Even though, like, sometimes I have Chinese teachers, they teach English, that are still hesitant to speak English with me. And I'm like, dude, you're an English teacher. Like, it's fine. I'm not going to laugh at you, or, feel free to ask me if you're saying something wrong. Like, we can help each other. So, no, they're not really willing to speak English, even if they have the skills sometimes.
Interesting. Can you tell us some stories about your students? Like, any funny stories or anything that's made you laugh recently that your students have said or kind of done in the past?
Wow, I should have thought about this one. They're so funny. I have kids that age from age 3 to 12. And as they're growing, it's, I've only been here for a year, but it's interesting how far some of them have come in that year. They're starting to be more interested about countries. I taught this short-term course that was just all about countries, different countries, which was really fun. I've discovered that is my favorite part of this job, is teaching the world culture classes. So it's really funny to ask them, like, where do you think Jesse's from? Where do you think I'm from? And see what they come up with. Some of my younger ones the other day were like, Thai goal, which is Thailand. I'm like, okay. Oh. You think I'm from Thailand? Really? Okay. But their scope is limited. They know Asian countries and maybe not other ones. So
yeah,
that's been fun. Yeah.
I remember playing a similar game with my students where I would say, how old is Rose teacher? And they just would have no idea like of how old I could possibly be. And so they would kind of not really know. They would maybe say some random ages. And then I would tell them like, I'm 76. And they would be like, no. And they're like, teacher's a grandma? And I'm like, teacher's a grandma. And I would just mess with them sometimes with those things because it's so funny to just see their reaction. And then you see like one or two of the kids in the classroom are like, that's not right. That's like, they're a little bit like quicker than the rest of the group. And they're like, teacher's not telling the truth. Like, that's not right. But I like kind of having those conversations with them because it really kind of exercises that part of their brain where they're like, she's a teacher, so I have to trust what she says, but it doesn't make sense. So should I challenge it? So it's always a fun thing to do.
Exactly. I always say I'm from China first, and they're like, no, you're not China people.
That's cute. So now that you are 1 year in for China, what's kind of your plan? Are you staying another year? Are you working with the same company? What are you thinking for the future?
I did decide to stay with the same company for 1 more year. Second year package was significantly better than the first one. So I really couldn't figure out. I applied to some other companies, but I ultimately decided to stay here just for the ease. I know where I am, I know what's going on. And like I said, the pay was good. So 1 more year here. I am considering already staying a 3rd year and then moving on from there. I do want to learn Mandarin, so I really want to focus on that this year. Last year, I focused more on seeing as much of Asia as I possibly could. So,
yeah, have you done a lot of traveling?
I did. I had a great time in Thailand. I went to Bali for Spring Festival back this February, which was a place I never thought I'd be able to go. It just seemed so far and unattainable, and I loved it. I had a good time. I've been to a few places in mainland China. Hong Kong was great. So yeah, I've been having a good time.
Now, if you are unfamiliar with Jessica, she's one of our social media ambassadors, and I urge you to check out her Instagram because her photos are unbelievable. As soon as you said Bali, I was like, oh, I remember you had posted some photos from there, and they were just gorgeous, just beautiful, beautiful photos. So I urge you to check out her Instagram. It's just chock full of all the adventures that she goes on, which is fantastic. So to close up, I wanted to ask you any advice for teachers out there that are maybe just going through their TEFL certificate and still a little bit nervous of going abroad, or trying to figure out what's the right fit for them. What sort of advice do you have for people in that position?
The longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes. I actually met someone who was in my online program. We were in the same city in Charlotte taking it together, but we didn't know each other. So we met in person and had lunch, and she still hasn't gone anywhere. And she asks me all the time, like, so what are you doing? Like, it's kind of like this longing, type of thing that she has with me. And I'm like, just do it. Like, you did the same thing I did. I've gone to a second country now. Like, I think the longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes. So just go, get out there, ask as many people questions as you can. People are constantly in my inbox, which I love. That's the same thing I did before I left. I reached out to every person I could find on Facebook or Instagram about what their life was like. And that really is the best thing you can do. You need to ask people who are there right now. Try not to focus on people who were past tense in cities and countries because their experience is outdated.
Definitely. I think that's great advice. So before we wrap up, I do want to remind everyone that if you're in Chicago next week, International TEFL Academy is having a film festival. It's on April 4th. We're going to be showing 12 short films. That's $15 per ticket, and 100% of the tickets proceeds are going straight to charity. So please join us if you're interested. And Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. We love hearing about your adventures. We love hearing about your time abroad. Thank you so much for giving advice to some of the current students that are just trying to get through that certification so they can kind of get abroad and get to doing what you're doing. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. And always, I really appreciate you guys at ITA.
Oh, thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.